Yes, it is Larry Sharpe here, 5 p.m. on the East Coast. Yes, I am all over the place today. It's true, I am all over the place. However, this is different. You might say, Larry, wait a minute. I do not see you in one of your Larry Sharpe shirts, whether your Don't Blame Me shirt or my Larry Sharpe for Governor shirt, old school or new school. I see you in a college shirt. Yeah, you know why? It's debate time. Yes, it is yet again. We've had two Democratic debates for the New York State governor, and we've had two for the Republicans. Now I've covered all three except the last one, which was Republican debate, which I think was 2 days ago. A little bit late. Sorry, I was doing other things, as you could imagine. But no, I want to go through that too with you because I think you'll see a little bit of change. I think you'll see some other stuff that's important too. So I think we'll figure this one out. Of course, if you know it's going to be good, and it's going to be good, then do me a solid. You know what I want you to do? I want you to comment so people see it and then ask questions so that people respond. I want you to share into groups that you think might be important, particularly maybe in this case, Republican and Democratic groups who want to see their gubernatorial candidate get, talked about. So I'm saying, if you like, you click that like button, subscribe. You don't like that, that's fine. Click the don't like button. I don't care. Click a button so I can get past this horrible shadow ban that I get. If you want to support me running around, please feel free to head over to LarrySharpe.com/donate to hook me up there. I appreciate that if you can. And of course, please, my sponsor, theadvocates.org, the world's smallest political quiz. You're going to want to do that now, right? Send it to your friends. Click that specific link right there. Share that into your social media so that people will go there, take the world's smallest political quiz. It's very interesting, very fun. And you might find out you're more moderate or more liberal or more progressive or more conservative or more libertarian than you think you are. That would be amazing if any of those things are true. I do appreciate that. So let me get into it if I could. I want to show you what is happening. What happened, I should say, during that debate. All righty, here we go.
Prior to tonight's events, each candidate will be given equal time and an equal amount of questions about key issues facing voters today. Not all candidates will answer every question. The order of questions were determined by Newsmax. Answers will be limited to 1 minute or less, and we have a count.
What's amazing is Newsmax is doing this. That's pretty amazing. Newsmax is doing this.
On clock to keep the candidates to time. 30-second rebuttals will be allowed if one candidate attacks another. This will be at the moderator's discretion.
Lisa brings up a point right away. How do you feel about bad cops? Lisa, you're going to see the Republicans just love cops. And the Democrats are like, defund the police. I'm a realist on cops. My father was in law enforcement, right? I know it. And I don't just, when I say law enforcement, I don't just mean cops. Cops are important, obviously, but so are parole officers, corrections officers. They're all part of law enforcement. Here's how I feel about them. They're humans. There are bad cops and there are good cops. There are bad everything and good everything. So yeah, bad cops are bad, like bad teachers. Fire them, get rid of them. Like bad anything, bad truck drivers, fire them. I don't think cops are awesome. I don't think they're bad either. They're just human beings trying to get a job done. So my father was a human being trying to get a job done. If we make a better system, we'll have better cops. A worse system, we'll have worse cops. That's how I feel about cops. But you're going to hear a whole lot about cops today.
Candidates have agreed to the rules. And now we ask our very enthusiastic audience to be respectful and limit applause to the end of the debate. For background purposes, both Andrew Giuliani and Rob Astorino have served as paid contributors to Newsmax in the past.
That's true. They were both Newsmax people. That's true.
Any formal or informal
Lisa, why don't yell at me? Lisa's yelling at me now.
All right, let's get
started.
How
do you get held responsible? I have an entire plan.
This is for all of you.
I'll cover it later.
Candidates. If New York were a separate country, by the way, some estimates would have it the 11th largest economy in the world with 20 million people and home to the nation's largest city. What makes each one of you qualified to lead such a complex and consequential state? You each have 30 seconds. Mr. Astorino, you will be first.
Well, Eric, thank you, and good to be with everybody here in Rochester.
I was going to say, I ran in Westchester.
I'm qualified because I did it. In Westchester County, which is 3-1 Democrat, home of the Clintons and George Soros, this staunch conservative got elected twice, cut taxes, held the line on the budget for $1.8 billion, all straight 8 years. I also made sure that when the Democrats went crazy and they controlled the county board, I vetoed their legislation for spending or whatever chaos they tried to put on.
It's not bad. I was an executive.
It's not bad. On this stage with executive experience.
All right, these guys will also see the 30-second clock. So, Mr. Giuliani, you're up next.
Well, first off, thank you very much, Eric, Newsmax, for putting this debate on, and I'd like to thank you.
Boring.
It is nice to be with you in person finally.
Nicely done with this anti-vax stuff. Nicely done.
I've served the last 4 years of my time in the Trump White House, working on important issues like the Paycheck Protection
He's good because he worked for Trump.
Eric, like you know very well.
First guy says I was executive. This guy's
and like
worked for
making
Trump.
sure that 9/11's health fund got refunded the money that had been
Brought up
taken out
9/11?
over the previous
Really?
administrations.
All right.
When I think about the work that I did with President Trump in the White House,
With
that's
President
the kind
Trump.
of
Don't
change
forget
that
that.
we need in Albany, and I would bring that experience to Albany to change Albany.
All right, let's
Here
go.
we go.
Next up is Congressman Lee Zeldin.
Life experience. I'm currently in my 20th year serving the United States Army. The life experience of raising identical girls born 14 and a half weeks.
Now, that's the weakest of them all, right? I mean, at least you were an executive. At least you were talking about it. Yeah, but this guy goes, I was a reserve military guy for 20 years. Yeah, it's not bad, but there's a lot of people who could say that. And I raised 2 kids. You know what? Me too. I was actually active duty for 7. So I don't know. I might have you beat on that one. So maybe.
Early, weighing just 1.5 pounds, serving the last 4 terms in the United States Congress. It's important to respect life, respect freedom, allow people to keep more of their money, individual liberty. We see it with medical freedom. We see it with regards to preserving the Second Amendment.
He didn't even answer.
It's important to have a
These other guys answered.
principled structure and backbone, which is lacking, unfortunately, with a government thinks that they want to rule the people. No, the people want to be in charge of their own government.
I feel like he's always trying
Mr. Wilson?
hard.
Sure.
So, Eric, as you know, I'm a businessman, not a politician. I've spent nearly 30 years, the highest levels of American business, fixing broken companies. I think that's
not
exactly
bad.
the skill set we need to fix the most broken state government in the country. In my turnaround plan, we will cut income taxes 20%. We will cut property taxes 20%.
That's not bad, but the problem is, right, you can't just be that, right? That's the problem. You can't just be that. The reality of it is most people who come out of the business world and then move into government don't do well. They often struggle. And I would argue even Trump struggled this first couple of years. Many of his plans weren't completed because he struggled in the first couple of years. When business people come into government, they tend to struggle initially until they get their feet wet on how government works. Government's not business. Not even close. Not even close. So no, I am just not prepared to accept that as true, right? It's better, right? Better than the other guys, right? That's for sure. It is better. The guy with the best experience probably actually is Astorino here. With the exception of, say, someone like, I don't know, Larry Sharpe, who's been both in nonprofits and in profits, who's done passion projects, which the government often is, and who's actually trained people in New York State, literally New York City agencies, the biggest bureaucracies in the country. I've actually trained those people in leadership. So I think I got them beat, but it's not bad. He says it at least.
We will engage in regulatory reform to reduce the cost of living for families across the state. I'm the only person who's created jobs and built a business, and that's exactly what we'll do with a focus on economic development.
It's got them
I
there.
am from upstate New York. I understand the challenges of the upstate economy, and that experience of both business and having lived it.
He's the only guy really from upstate too. I'll give him that too. Everybody else is downstate. They're all downstaters, right? Long Island, Westchester, New York City. He's right. He is the only upstater. That's true.
Through my entire life is exactly what we'll do to revive this.
And Lee Zeldin, for you upstaters, I don't know what's wrong with you. Lee Zeldin, downstater. He picks his lieutenant governor, downstater. He's a prosecutor. She's a cop. That's who he picks.
State.
Okay. All right, there we go. And now, folks, this question is again for all of the candidates. The number one issue concerning all Americans today, inflation. The annual inflation rate is 8.6%. Rising gas prices cause all of the costs, such as food, to rise. New York also has high taxes, high housing costs, and unfriendly.
I am sad to say that, I mean, Newsmax is asking better questions than mainstream media. Newsmax. It's actually better questions about real stuff. Not bad.
Business regulations that increase prices at a greater rate than other states. What would each of you do as governor to help New Yorkers battle inflation? And Mr. Wilson, you're up first.
All right,
Sure.
come on,
So
Wilson.
it
Give me
is a
some.
huge issue, and we've forgotten all the lessons of the last 40 years because of the bad Biden policies that have enabled this 40-year
Bad
record
Biden
inflation.
policies.
So
Okay, that's
what
good
we can do at the
punch.
state level is offset it by reducing taxes and the cost of living. So when you go through all of my pieces,
No.
property tax cut, income tax cut, cost
No.
of living, those will put up to $5,000.
No. This is a better answer than the others will have. However, this isn't the right answer, right? If you just cut taxes, and I got to be clear on this, guys, I'm not against cutting taxes, but you can't just cut taxes. If you only cut taxes without reducing spending, critical piece, if you don't also, in addition to cutting taxes, either reduce spending or find other ways of raising cash, all you will do is increase more debt. And New York State already has, I think, $400 billion in debt. We don't want it. We don't have a Fed. We can't magically make money like this. The country does. We're going to struggle to service our debt. This is a bad idea on its surface. He needs to go further, or he's just forget about it. Not going to happen.
A year into the pockets of middle-class families. It is a total game changer, and that is how we offset.
This is the issue. He's just saying putting more money into. This is the same thing Kathy Hochul says. That Kathy Hochul says tax and spend. He says debt and spend. You got to get rid of spending.
Bad Biden policies here in New York make New York much more affordable.
Okay, Mr. Astorino.
Well, I did this in Westchester, as I mentioned. We held the line on spending, which meant we had to cut hundreds of millions of dollars out of the budget to stay at $1.8 billion for all 8 years, and that allowed us to cut property taxes.
However, if you know what happened in Westchester, and I know Lee Zeldin will say it because he's always on him about this, debt went up. There was a whole lot of debt in Westchester because of this. He was a debt and spend, not a tax and spend.
We worked with all of our businesses, big and small, so they could prosper in Westchester County. And that's something we have to do here in New York. And unfortunately, you know, we go back to the Cuomo years and the Hochul years now. This train has been out of control for so long. And unfortunately, it was people in the state Senate, in New York, in Albany, like Lee Zeldin, who were voting for the Cuomo budgets the entire time that got us to this point.
So that coming a mile away.
Unfortunately, that train was put on that track, and it was kept by the conductor, Lee Zeldin, and Andrew Cuomo. And that's where we are today, where we are. $40 billion additional in the last 2 years in our budgets in New York. And that means we have the highest taxes. I will cut taxes, including the estate tax for our farmers and small businesses, corporate taxes, income taxes. And yes, I already did it. I cut property taxes in West.
Yeah, I get the tax cutting. It's easy. First off, it's easy to say tax cut, right? Easy to say it. They all say it. Where is the reduction in spending or the way of raising money to make up for the taxes? Because what's going to happen is your people throughout this entire state are going to say, where's my money? Where's my money? If you can't cut spending, this tax cutting is just a story they're telling you, just more debt.
And we'll do that in New York.
All right, Congressman Zeldin, you're up next.
We have to bring down spending. We have to cut taxes across the board.
All right, there we go,
One of the ways that we can help revitalize local economies, to create jobs, to generate revenue. We should reverse the state's ban on the safe extraction of natural gas. It's important.
Okay, stop the natural gas thing. All right, all these guys say this garbage, and here's why. Not that I'm against natural gas. I'm not. That's not going to stop us against inflation. It's going to take years to get natural gas out, assuming that the local counties even agree to it. For those who don't know, there's about, I think 14 or 15, I think it's 15 counties in New York State, mostly along the southern tier, that actually could do it, right? That have the facilities and have the ability to actually extract natural gas. Most of them have already voted locally that they don't want to do it. So only a couple of them would actually go, okay, I'll do it. And if they do it, that's great, but that's still years. That's not going to stop with inflation now. None of them gave the right answer. The right answer to inflation, so you guys understand this, you cannot stop inflation. Harry Wilson was correct. We can't stop it. Most of that's from the federal government and national policies. But we can buffer. That we can do. Harry Wilson's correct. His diagnosis is correct, but his actual prescription's incorrect. What we do is, again, inflation is literally too many dollars for not enough labor and not enough goods and services, right? So allow New Yorkers to work to produce more goods and services, and you will buffer against inflation. How do you do that? Reducing licensing, make it easier to start a business, supporting farmers, allowing industries like cannabis, industries like blockchain mining, allowing these industries into New York very easily and simply. Hemp, oh my God, hemp into this state, easily, simply that anyone can do it, to create small businesses and to create smaller economies locally. That will buffer against inflation. None of them said that. I've been saying that for literally 2 years now. You do that, you will buffer against inflation.
for the southern tier. It's important for other counties that want it. We have pipeline applications right now in Albany that are collecting dust, being delayed, denied, that instead should be getting approved. Right now, we have one-party rule. Kathy Hochul is going to get fired November 8th. I'm looking.
One party rule. Steal my stuff. You steal my stuff, Lee. I don't mind. You're right. You steal one party rule. I've been saying that forever. That's kind of my thing. That's fine. Kathy Hochul's not getting fired by you, Lee. Democrats are not going to vote for you. You are literally on Newsmax. Democrats are not going to vote for you.
Looking forward to removing her from this office. One party rule. They want to next ban all gas hookups on new construction statewide. Right. I care about the future of the state. Right. I am all in on this rescue mission to save our state. Unfortunately, what you just heard was untrue from Mr. Astorino. One, I never once voted for Cuomo's proposed budget. And secondly, when Mr. Astorino was the county executive, he got run out because the deficit and debt went up. The cash reserves plummeted, the bond rating went down, and the sewer fund ended up owing tens of billions of dollars to the general fund. He forgot to mention all that. He's actually lost 3 consecutive races for 3 different offices.
Now, this is a thing that kind of, I get why Lee does this, but it kind of bothers me a bit. He talks about how almost like he's a winner and Lee Zeldin's a loser. Now, I know it works for many people, particularly people who like Trump and like that strong, that brazen, and a lot of Republicans really like Trump and like the strong, brazen forwardness. I get that. There's an attractiveness to that confidence. But Lee struggles with it. He's not as, whether you like or hate Trump, whatever is your view upon Trump, Trump comes across naturally. I'm the greatest. Blah, blah, blah. It comes like one of those wrestlers. He just comes across naturally. It's in his personality. I feel like Lee is trying too hard. Like, it doesn't come across as real. He's like, I'm just great. And it feels like he's pushing it. And maybe I'm wrong, but that's the vibe I get from him. Like, I just win all the time. And Astorino just loses. I mean, but he's not wrong. Astorino has lost 3 times in a row. What he's saying is not incorrect.
And he's trying to get your vote once again.
So before I go to Mr. Giuliani, Mr. Astorino, do you want to respond? 30 seconds.
Yeah, I think I do. You know, to say that you didn't vote for the Cuomo budgets is true. It's incomprehensible.
But it's true.
Look it up, folks, because the executive, which I was, has to give the budget, and then the legislature votes on that budget, which he did. So every year he voted aye when Cuomo said, this is what you're going to do.
When Cuomo said this is what you're going to do, he went aye. Oh, he's messing with me bad.
The problem that we've been facing in New York is we've had the establishment, the status quo, the get along, go along crowd, like Lee Zeldin in Albany when he was in the state Senate majority. Every time he was a reliable vote for Andrew Cuomo.
There'll be plenty of time to get further into this, guys.
15 seconds.
15 seconds to Lee.
Okay, so when they tried that last week, these guys ended up getting fact-checked by Politico. They did the research.
Politico? You back in Politico now? You know you on Newsmax, right? I mean, just saying you might want to read your audience a little bit better. A little bit better.
And Politico found that out of 63 New York State senators, there were only 2 state senators who voted against Andrew Cuomo more than I did. All right. Out of 63 state senators, only 2 voted against them more than I did.
All right. Let's bring it to Mr. Giuliani.
Okay, let's talk about the issues that are important to New Yorkers, like the fact, like you mentioned, inflation through the roof. Look,
there we
I
go,
have a
Giuliani.
baby girl, my baby Grace, 6 months old, and I am concerned with the baby formula shortage. When I think about New York State budget at 200,
I got to tell you, Giuliani's growing on me. I think he's too much of a, I'm Trump and Giuliani too. I think he's got too much of that in him right now, to be forward with you. I know some of you like that. Some of you love that. I think he's got too much of it in him right now. But I think you give this guy 5 years, I don't know what the number, I made that up, 4 years, whatever, any of that, I think he's going to be a powerhouse because he does have passion. He does know how to deal. He knows how to deal with attacks too. Like, he absorbs them and pushes them back. I think he's going to, once he kind of can become more of his own man, if that makes any sense, I think he's going to be a powerhouse. That's my gut. Right now, I feel like people still think of him as, he's like Cuomo's Trump. He's not Cuomo. He's Giuliani, Trump's guy. I think he's kind of too much there right now. I don't think he's there yet.
$20 billion. And I compare Florida's state budget as $98 billion. There's no reason why we lead the country in out-migration. We need to make sure that we work on day one to take the same type of regulatory action in the state of New York that President Donald Trump took in the United States of America. You guys remember
jumped on
when
Trump.
He said for every regulation he'd sign into law, he would cut 2. Well, that's what we're going to do in New York. By the way, when he walked out of the White House, that number was over 8-1. And that's why we saw record unemployment. That's what we're going to do in New York. We're going to absolutely make sure
that's
we
not
tap
bad
into
for
the
that crowd.
Marcellus
That's good.
Shale
That crowd's
and
going to
make
love
sure
Trump.
we can actually make
That's
New
not
York
bad.
the best
Good for the
fracking
crowd.
state in the country again. And we are going to eliminate property taxes for New Yorkers over the age of 65 making $100,000 or less. We need.
All right, see, he starts stealing my stuff, but that's okay. Look, I'm glad they're obviously watching my show because if you go back 2 weeks ago, none of them had a plan. And all I did was hammer them on, none of them had a plan. All of a sudden now, I got Giuliani got plans. Everybody got plans now. That's a good thing. I'm happy they got plans. Better, right? It's better. But his plan isn't good enough. You don't want to eliminate, property tax for people over 65 who make over $100,000 a year. That's not for under $100,000. I'm sorry, under. That's not the right answer. The answer is because if you do that, then the wealthy seniors leave. I want the wealthy seniors to stay. I don't want a cap. See, if you cap it, then the wealthy seniors leave. I want the wealthy seniors to stay and spend their pensions here, right? If you're a wealthy senior, I want you to take all your pension. You earned your pension. Awesome. You're going to spend it someplace. Don't spend it in Florida. Spend it here. So I actually don't want a cap. What I want instead is once you're 65, all property tax, as long as you've owned a home in New York State, right, for at least 10 years, you don't have to own it now, but you have at one point owned a home in New York State for 10 years, your property tax goes down 5% at 65, continually every 5% until you're 85 and it's zero. And if you live past 85, zero. Why would I do that? Because I want you to say, you know what, my property tax is going down. Let me try to stay here in New York regardless of my income. And if your property tax keeps going down, you now become vested in staying in New York State. That's what I want. You will see your property tax come down. You can spend your pension here. You get more vested. I don't care if you make over $100,000 or less. I want you to spend your pension in New York State. That's what I want. So I would make that happen instead, right? If we keep doing that, more people should stay. But not just that, you don't lose any money because those people who would have gone to Florida are now staying here. So even though you're in theory, again, I'm saying theory, in theory, you'd be losing some property tax. You wouldn't be because more seniors are staying here, spending their pensions, putting more money into the economy. So you guys don't lose any money at all. So that's even better. So less taxes, more commerce, more seniors spending their money here. That's a much better piece. But I got added one more piece. What if you don't want to own a home? What if you're older? You're 65, 70, 80. You don't want to own a home anymore. You're like, you know what? I want to have a small apartment someplace, or I want to live in with my cousin or my niece or my nephew or my son or my daughter. No worries. You then give that person who is living with you half of the benefit. So if they live with the person, instead of getting 5%, they lose 2.5% all the way down, right? They begin to lose 2.5% every single year. And all of a sudden now you start seeing even their property tax goes down. So they want to live with their senior, again, keeping the senior here, spending their pensions in New York State. That's a better plan than his. But this is not a bad. He's got a plan. I'll take it. I'll take his plan over no plan. Mine's just better.
To make sure that we reignite the flame that is New York.
All right. All righty, folks, for all you gentlemen up there, polls show that rising crime is a concern for many Americans. Local and state governments have passed laws to limit incarceration and diminish the ability of police to keep our streets safe. And this has led to a rise in crime. Cashless bail was passed by the Senate and Assembly of the state legislature.
This is a little bit wrong, right? The question is like, crime is terrible. It's all because of we love criminals. That's not true. Don't get me wrong. Bail reform was terrible. It was not a good thing. But the reason why crime went up, I said about it, I talk about it forever, it's because of the lockdowns. The lockdowns. And as Republicans, you should be talking about that. But you're so busy trying to love cops. I mean, I'm not against cops. And bail reform was bad. But you're so busy doing that, you're not realizing the real reason is because of the lockdowns, which is what I've been saying forever.
What would you do, each of you do, to lower crime, knowing that the repeal of cashless bail and other measures would be difficult to get passed in the legislature? And we will start.
It will be very hard. He's right.
Well, first and foremost, on day one, right to Andrea Stewart Cousins and Carl Hastie and tell them very simply, full repeal of bail reform on my desk, or I'm not funding anything in our upcoming budget negotiation.
Yeah, but you better hope, homeboy, if that happens, that you don't have a dominant Democratic legislature, because they'll just veto all your they'll just run over your veto, and you will be a lame duck governor. So you can talk all your trash, but you better have people in there who can help you, or you're in trouble.
Eric, we need to frankly end the war on cops, not just in this state, but in this country,
war on cops.
to be perfectly honest. We are in Rochester right now, where last year they had the most murders ever in recorded history.
That's true.
And they now have a police oversight board in the state that is already filled with corruption. Unfortunately, we've been sending the wrong message to police. They will know, as your governor, there is nobody that will back the police to the degree that I will. On day one, we will work to make sure that we fire rogue district attorneys like Alvin Bragg, like any other sort.
So literally, what he's saying is the people of this area want this DA. They want this DA. He's going to fire the DA that the people of this area want. Instead of saying, why don't we allow for a recall? That's what happens in California. That's a much better answer. I don't want the governor firing DAs that local people want. Look, I may disagree with your DA, and often I do, but that's not the point. The point is local people should be deciding what they think is important, not the governor. This is localism. Instead, support a constitutional amendment to allow local people to recall their own DA. They think this guy is going to be awesome. He's wrong. Recall him. That's the right answer. You should not be deciding who's the DA and not. That is a bad idea.
Funded district attorney across the state right here. And I will create a $5 billion state pot, so that way any city, any municipality, any county that has had their resources taken or defunded can tap right into the state budget. So that way,
state coming up with $5 billion for the cops. Wow. Absolutely wrong answer. No, wrong answer. Let local people be policed how they want to be policed. That's what you want. That's the answer.
End the war on our police.
Congressman Zeldin.
Didn't answer the question, by the way.
On day one,
his answer is, how do we deal with all the crime? Give cops more money. That's how you deal with more crime.
Alvin Bragg is fired. It's the constitutional authority of the governor. It needs to get done the first day as soon as we get sworn into office. We need to repeal cashless bail. We need to reverse.
Repeal cashless bail is a terrible idea. As I'm saying, bail reform itself is a good idea. Our bail reform in New York State is a disaster. So I want to be clear about that, right? Bail reform is a good idea. Our bail reform was terrible. And if you remember 3 years ago, I said this. I said, look, I know it's bad. I said it out loud. It was bad idea. It went bad. However, I know what'll happen. This is what I said. And I was wrong on this one. And I'm rarely wrong, as you know, but I was wrong. What I said was, it's so bad, the judges aren't going to accept it. And they are literally going to go against it, and they're going to start holding people. And when they do, there'll be appeals. And the appellate courts will make rulings, and the courts will then fix what the assembly failed to fix. That is what I assumed. Wow, was I wrong. The judges literally let everybody out. Now, you might say, well, Larry, no one's saying this. Yes, no one is punishing the judges in this one. Was the bail reform law wrong? 100%. But why didn't the judges fix it? And of course, this was like, judges had their hands tied. They couldn't say anything. That's a bunch of bullshit. I use it all the time because I got it from, believe it or not, Gary Johnson. What if there was a law that was passed by the legislature that said if you're 17 years old and you're convicted of drawing graffiti on a train, then you are to be sentenced mandatory minimum to death. And that was actually passed. So now you're a judge. There's a 17-year-old kid sitting there. He gets convicted of graffiti, and you now have to sentence him to death. What would you do? My hands are tied, sentenced to death. You're a horrible human being. Of course you wouldn't do that. You would say, no, this is terrible. I'm not sentencing a kid who did graffiti to death. No, I'm not doing that. Appeal my decision. Sorry. No. Whatever, 30 days or whatever is the appropriate thing for a kid who does graffiti. Of course you would do that. Well, then when you knew it was a guy who was in front of you, who had been convicted multiple times, arrested multiple times, was violent, why'd you let him out? Why did you let him out? Why did you go, no, I don't care. I'm remanding him. I don't care. But no, they didn't. Why? Because the judiciary in New York State was so angry, didn't have enough jurisdiction, that they were attacked by the assembly, that their pride said, nope, I'm letting everybody out. And people died and people got killed and people were beaten because the judges wouldn't stand up for what's right. So yes, I will blame the judges too. No one else will tell you that because they all want to kiss judges' butt. I don't. The judges should have stepped up too, and they didn't. This does not mean the assembly wasn't wrong. They were wrong, but there's plenty of blame to go to everybody. The judges could have fixed this in courts, and they did not. And they did not. No, this is more than just that. Now, how do you fix bail reform? It's grossly simple. You simply make one adjustment to bail reform. First-time offenders. Problem solved. You make it first-time offenders, done. Right? That's it. Done. First-time offenders. If you're a first-time offender, you don't have to worry about cash bail. Done. If you figure this out this way, all the people who went out and did bad things, they were all multiple offenders. All of them. Problem solved. First-time offenders should be given a break. You do that, the chance of anything happening bad, slim to none. It's just the way it is. It's the multiple offenders you got to worry about. They didn't talk about this.
The discovery law changes. We need to get
discovery law. What are you, nuts? Okay. Wow, Lee, you are so off on this. Wow. If you guys vote for him, you're begging to go to jail. Discovery law, so you don't know. Wow. Whenever the prosecutor gets all of the data on you, whatever the evidence is on you, New York laws. This is a good law, by the way. This is a good law New York put in. The DA and whoever is your ADA or whoever's your prosecutor has to give your lawyer all the evidence they have as soon as possible. There's some rule on what it is, but as soon as possible. So you can look at it. So you can see if it's bogus or not. If you have a lawyer, so you can look at it and go, no, it's not true. That's not real. But instead, he wants to where they give it to you. I'm not joking. Sometimes they will give it to you days before you go to trial. So the prosecutors had all the evidence for months. You get it for days. Good luck. Totally unfair. The new discovery laws in New York State are good. They are fair to the accused. He's 100% wrong on this. Shame on you, Lee. See, he's a prosecutor is why. He's a prosecutor and his lieutenant governor's a cop. All they want is punish people.
Of less is more, which is releasing people early from prison. We have to get rid of the HALT Act.
Why is releasing people early from prison who are nonviolent a bad thing? Again, nonviolent. Why is it a bad thing? If you're not violent, get back in.
We should pass a law enforcement Bill of Rights, recognize their inherent right of self-defense. Make sure.
Law enforcement Bill of Rights? They killed Eric Garner scot-free. What are you talking about? How about the guy getting choked out by the cops is a Bill of Rights? How about that? Wow, you are showing your true colors, my friend. Wow, you are.
They have all the tools and resources they need to do their jobs safely and effectively. Make sure they're not unfairly targeted by investigations. We should overhaul the parole board. We should change it from a majority vote to a unanimous vote. We should allow victims.
How is any of this going to stop? Kids on the street shooting each other. Everything he's saying does nothing except increase the police state. And don't get me wrong, Kathy Hochul's doing the same thing, just not with cops. She's doing the same thing. She passed 10 laws last week. This is not just Republicans. I mean, I'm hitting Republicans because they're in front of me, but Democrats did exactly the same thing. Democrats are out there going, 10 more laws, more gun laws, more gun laws. You know what all those gun laws were used? Inner cities against young black and brown people. That's what happened with the SAFE Act. That's what's happening now. So the Democrats who say they care about young black and brown people, they don't. But they say it, enact laws that will punish them. At least Lee's open about it. Punish them all. I'll give him that. He's honest. Democrats are lying.
To provide testimony. We shouldn't be releasing cop killers and murderers.
Well, that part's true. Testimony and parole board is right. So he's got one good one. That's true.
From the parole board as easily as what we are seeing right now. On my website, zeldinfornewyork.com/secure our streets, we outline our top couple dozen or so proposals in order to secure our streets. I was raised.
You hear this? They all got plans now. Somebody was watching me last time because I hammered them and none of them having plans. Now they got plans all of a sudden. Now you got plans. Now I hear your plans. I don't like them. Go back to no
in
plans.
the law enforcement household, and I'm honored to have the endorsement of a whole host of different law enforcement organizations across this state, and I look forward to once again having Albany unapologetically backing the blue.
Yeah.
Now, be clear about this. He thinks, and if you're a Republican now in New York State, that guy's probably going to win. And he's saying, I'm looking forward to Albany unapologetically backing the blue. You think that's going to win in New York State, where half of these cities are talking about defunding the police? You think that's going to win in New York State? 3-1, Democrat to Republican. If you can't get Democrats to vote for you, you cannot win.
Mr. Wilson.
Sure. Eric, this is a hugely important issue, and it's unacceptable that we have forgotten the lessons of the Giuliani era and the Bloomberg era and other cities across the state where we made massive improvements in crime. It is unacceptable for New Yorkers to live on unsafe streets. It's deeply personal for me. I have 2 cousins in law enforcement, and just 10 days ago, as I shared on the debate stage a couple debates ago, I had an extended family member killed by someone out on cashless bail. We need to think about victims, not criminals. That is what criminal justice is.
No. Victims and the accused. Let's be clear about that. Victims and the accused. Prior to you being convicted, you are just the accused. So victims and the accused.
All about. So public safety is all about. That's why I have a 14-page Making New York Safe crime plan on our website that goes through everything from repealing bail reform to fixing discovery standards and supporting our brave men and women in law enforcement.
What's wrong with you? I thought you were the normal one, Harry. Now you doubling down on I'm going to support the Republican no matter what. I thought you were an independent guy. Now you support Republicans no matter what. I thought you were an independent guy. That went out the window. And now you're all just about, more cops, more cops. What happened to actual plans with local people?
Who need the financial and human support that they need to do the job they do well. But what it all comes down to, you asked about how do you get it done? All of these bad policies were created by the Cuomo-Hochul budgets. We will undo them through the Cuomo-Hochul budgets, and we will not back down because it is that essential to get it done for the people of the state.
Okay. Mr. Estorino?
There was another murder in Rochester just today. And this, unfortunately, is across New York State and around the country because we are coddling criminals right now. The leftist agenda has handcuffed our police officers.
Wow, you two. I thought you were kind of normal, but you're not either. Wow. So the reason why let me tell you why the reason why there's more violence in the streets. Because we took our youth for 2 years and we removed their purpose. We literally said, don't go to school, don't go to work, stay home. And not just that, we made sure stuff couldn't get into the cities. And when stuff couldn't get into the cities, you created a black market. So the black market bad guys said, wow, I can make tons of money in the black market. Hey, here's all these young men with nothing to do. Thank you for recruiting my gangbangers. And now we have gang violence everywhere. Most of the violence in the broad daylight is gang violence. The rest of that is not just gang violence, but it's people trying to show off how hot and cool they are. That's what that is, what most of this violence is. On top of that, we said, you got to stay home for 2 years. Oh, when you're mentally ill, you can't go see your therapist. You can't go get your drugs. You can't go get your treatment. And now you were already lonely, schizophrenic. Now you're stuck alone all by yourself to be worse, which makes nothing but mental health worse. The reason for the crime spike, it all happened in 2020. All of a sudden, that's when it happened. Why did it happen? Because bail reform. Not because bail reform. Not because, why would they let people out? Because you had COVID lockdowns literally in the prisons. Yes, the lockdowns are the reason. And not one of these people said it. Now, Democrats won't say it because they think lockdowns are awesome. It's all their idea. You'd think the Republicans would say it. They won't. It's back to blue, back to blue. They were back in the blue for years. If you go before 2020, being a New York City cop was always a challenging job and still is a very challenging job. But it wasn't a very deadly job prior to 2020. Now, oh my God, cops get shot now in New York City. That wasn't a thing. What changed in the 20 years before 2020 and 2020? Lockdowns. That's the difference. Lockdowns. When the people are locked down and believe they have no hope or nothing to lose, they act accordingly, to include shooting cops. That's what happens.
Defamed and defunded them, and unfortunately, they're letting the criminals run wild. I'm a gun owner, and I'm proudly a Second Amendment supporter. And it's interesting, if I have a concealed carry permit, which I do, and I take my gun by accident from, let's say, the Westchester border into the Bronx,
you're in
I
trouble.
would be a felon overnight if caught.
Yep.
And yet, all of these criminals who are arrested with illegal possession of a gun, those charges are dropped. They're released. No cash bail obviously is a big mistake and needs to be repealed, and it will be. I will fire district attorneys like Alvin Bragg, who
don't fire district attorneys.
They have to go. We saw that in San Francisco. Watch it happen in New York.
Yes.
I will remove
oh
them.
my God, yes.
Also,
we saw it happen in San Francisco by a recall, which is the right answer. Recall is the right answer. Recall your crappy DAs, but do not let a governor decide who's going to be. Otherwise, why have an election? Governors will decide what they want, how they want. No, this is a terrible idea. Do not fire DAs. Allow local people to recall them. That is the right answer.
Things like stop, question, frisk, which is constitutional. Things like that worked, like taking guns.
Stop and frisk literally was terrible in New York State, in New York City. Terrible in New York City. That's not a good idea.
From criminals in those gun-free zones that don't work. We have to go after criminals, and I will, and stop this chaos in New York.
All right. Well, this is for all candidates, folks. The U.S. has been rocked by recent mass shootings, both a school in Uvalde and a supermarket in Buffalo, less than 100 miles from right here. As governor, would you advocate for more gun control, and how would you harden schools and public places? Congressman Zeldin, you're up first.
Actually, New York's gun laws go too far as it is. We should repeal the unconstitutional SAFE Act. We should be
which you didn't try to stop at all.
Changing the standard from may issue to shall issue. We need to.
What? You stole that one from me too? He couldn't even say shall. He went shall because he didn't even know. He's never said it before, right? He changed it because of what I said. I would say you got to make New York State a shall issue state. So he stole mine and didn't even do it right. You messed your line up.
To make changes with regards to the red flag laws that right now in the state can target law-abiding citizens, as opposed to getting right to the heart of somebody like the Buffalo shooter who threatened to shoot up a school and still had access to a rifle to carry out that offense. I am honored to be the endorsed NRA candidate in this race. I'm an A-rated lifetime NRA member, endorsed by the president of the New York State Rifle.
Yeah, that's not impressive. The NRA, not impressive. NRA is all about, NRA doesn't agree with you. NRA does not say repeal laws. NRA says just enforce the ones they are now. That's what NRA says. NRA is not about going back. So yeah. Amber Lamps, that's cute. I got it. Amber Lamps says the SCOTUS made shall issues that. Yes, 100% true. Yes, you are correct. So Jackie says it's both, in my view, lockdowns and bail reform is never going to help. Agreed. I want to be clear. Bail reform was a bad idea and absolutely hurt. I agree. But that's not the key reason for the violence. That is a secondary piece to it. Part of it should be fixed. However, the biggest issue, without question, is lockdowns. That's the biggest piece. Yes, that's the biggest piece.
And Pistol Association, endorsed by the president, the chairman of the board of Scope. This is important for all gun owners to be able to vote. It's not just your right to vote. Is your duty to vote, is your obligation to vote, because right now in this state, you have people who are in charge who feel like your rights is something that Kathy Hochul can just give you and take away at her whim.
Not wrong.
That's not how this works. Public service is about serving the public, not being served by the public. And Kathy Hochul's called on us to be her apostles. We're not here to serve you. And unfortunately, the way it is right now, I say that we need to roll it back, not have new gun laws.
All right, Mr. Wilson.
He's right.
You know, this whole debate, Eric, is a classic example of what's wrong with politics, because people are demonizing issues that have nothing to do with the core problems. The core problems are not law-abiding citizens. I started shooting in my backyard with my dad in Johnstown, New York when I was 8 years old. I'm a gun owner today. I am not the problem. And people who are the 99.9% of law-abiding citizens are not the problem. The problem is criminals, the mentally ill, and purveyors of hate like the monster who drove to Buffalo. That is who should we go after. And politicians in this state, have failed on all three of those areas. If we did that, if we focus on criminals, crime we just talked about, and mental health, we've actually seen the number of psychiatric beds go down 15% over the last 3 years, despite spending $220 billion in the state budget. So our priorities are wrong. As a result, we failed to deal with the problems of people contributing to the problem, as opposed to going after law-abiding citizens.
Yeah, but he's not answering the question because he's not going to change the SAFE Act. He's not as pro-2A as he says. He's not getting rid of that
stuff. Mr. Astorino?
This is not what's called criminal control. And we've lost all control of criminals in New York because they're being released because of these leftist policies. We have to get back, as I said, to
what happened to you?
But it's also, you have to be tough. And I was, as an executive, we had a police department
Westchester,
that I had to run.
I did everything.
We had to make sure that policies were in place that protected our police officers. And gave them the tools that they need. And we
you guys,
did.
none of you have the answer.
The leftists
about gun
in
control.
New York City and Kathy Hochul are pushing are clearly driving up crime. So we've got to go into the zones where it is, give the police officers the tools that they've needed. And I've talked to NYPD commissioners and sheriffs and rank and file police officers. They feel like they get no support because they haven't by the left. But, you know, when it's tough,
by the left, maybe, I don't know, maybe, but they get support.
And in Westchester, which I said is
New York City gives cops like $1 billion more.
By my predecessor, a Democrat. I brought the gun show back, and I also vetoed.
New York State gives cops, if you count all law enforcement, like $10 billion. This is insane. So they're good. They're not starving.
Legislation by the Democrats, which would have permanently banned it.
Okay.
Why did I do that? Because those with the Second Amendment rights, they're not the problem. The criminals are the problem.
Mr. Giuliani.
I believe in our United States Constitution as written. And when I think about the problems in Albany, the fact that we have a governor that immediately wants to go after our Second Amendment, and by the way, our First Amendment rights as well as the reaction to this.
He's not wrong.
The other candidates on the stage have alluded to this. We need to make sure that we fully fund our police. When we take a look at the Buffalo shooter, for example, this is a guy who said he was going to shoot up his school. The state police actually had this guy under custody, and they didn't have the resources necessary to actually hold him.
They didn't have the resources. That's a story you just made up, Giuliani. You made that up.
Fundamentally wrong when I hear people in Albany, in Washington, D.C., and in New York City, frankly, that have been yelling from the top of their lungs to defund our police, yet now they think they have the answers on this. Crime is out of control in this state. We need to make sure that we bring back stop, question, and frisk. We need to make sure that we bring back broken windows policing, and not just institute it in New York City, but institute it all around the state of New York. If we do that, we will make New York the safest.
He literally just said, we need to make sure we do stop and frisk and make a police state across all of New York. This guy just said that. We need a police state, all of New York State, police state.
This large state in the country again.
Okay. Now, don't get me wrong. Democrats do the same thing. They just say it nicer. But Democrats are Democrats get a police state too, but theirs is mostly to get money off of you, right? They use the police force as a profit center. So that's what they do. So they both do it. It's a little bit different. That's all.
And now another question for all of you. Last week, Governor Hochul called pro-lifers Neanderthals. Now, Mr. Wilson, given that abortion is a priority for Republican voters, how do you square your pro-abortion position with Republicans? For the other candidates, what do you say to pro-abortion New York voters to convince them to vote for you? And again,
I do like that pro-abortion. That's well done. That's good.
I will start with you, Mr. Wilson.
Sure. So, look, I am pro-choice. I don't agree with Governor Hochul's comments. I think they're totally off base. It's okay. It's okay. We did.
No. Look good. Look, I'm not saying that. I'm glad he didn't lie. I'm glad they're not going to like him. They're going to want to hear pro-life. But look, Harry, I'll give you this. You had to bite this bullet. It's a bullet you simply had to bite. So you bite the bullet and you move on this one. This is when you're going to lose. I got it. I'm not mad at him for this. He's not lying. He says I'm pro-choice in front of Newsmax audience. You didn't lie. I'll take it.
We're not going to agree on everything, and I apologize for that. But I will always tell you.
You got weak. Shouldn't apologize for it. That was something you should have said. Look, that's who I am. That's why. Blah blah, and move on. This one you got to bite a bullet on.
What I believe, even if we disagree, unlike some other folks. And let me explain why I am. I am a Greek Orthodox Christian. I have my personal views. My wife and I have our personal views. That's how we raised our 4 daughters. Okay, but I am a limited government conservative. And I believe that we should keep this government as limited as possible. I recognize many of my friends disagree with that. That's my position. And that will.
Yes. Hold on. Hold on. Call sign Joker says in New Paltz County, Mike. New Paltz County. No. Mike Cabanelli, former sheriff and former candidate exposed. No, Carpinelli is from Lewis County, if I'm not mistaken. I know Mike. He's a good guy. Yeah. So yeah, Carter's a good guy. I like him. I wish he would have joined my ticket. I think he's a good guy. He's the sheriff of Lewis County. So make sure that's clear. Shelley says, TSA on the street, stop and frisk, the same thing, and both are illegal according to the Constitution. I don't want TSA on the street. I completely agree. Yes, absolutely. I completely agree.
Will always be my position on every issue. I've been consistent about that for 30 years, ever since I evolved to that position. So that is how I look at it. I do believe the laws of the state go too far. I think it devalues life. I think the rhetoric for the governor is totally unacceptable. I think the notion of lighting up the Empire State Building is just wrong.
Yeah, he's right on this.
That does not mean that I don't believe that.
Look, whether you are pro-life or not, or whatever your views are on abortion, you shouldn't, and this is my view, my opinion, you shouldn't be happy about women being able to abort a baby at 8.5 weeks, 8.5 months. I'm sorry, 8.5 months. You shouldn't be happy about that. I mean, my daughters were born, they were both premature. I mean, my wife could have aborted our kids the day before they were born. There's got to be a limit somehow in your world, right? He says viability. I agree. At least that, at a minimum, that we go. New York State goes too far without. And New York State now is paying again. No matter what your view on abortion is, New York State now is paying people to have abortions here, and is prepared to pay to transfer them here too. Your tax dollars is now paying for abortions. Look, if you want to come and get an abortion, I get it. I'm not happy about it, but at least you pay for it. It's your money. You do what you got to do. New York State's paying for it.
People should have, up to the point of viability, the right to make
viability is better. I can accept it. I accept it.
I believe in life.
They do the same thing. Yeah, fine.
When I think about this, I think about my baby girl. I think about the first time that I saw her on the ultrasound machine. You know, we've been hearing from the left recently with regards to health mandates that my body, my choice is no longer acceptable. Yet, when we're talking about two souls from the moment of conception, now it's okay to do that. You're a
conception guy. Okay.
It shows the absolute hypocrisy. That's why we need to stand up and make sure we bring morality back to this state, my friends. And I will tell you, as governor, I will make sure we are doing everything that we possibly can, so that way we can defend New York's most vulnerable. When I think about this issue and I think about where we've gotten to this, you know, I was just in Amherst, New York, just outside of Buffalo.
Oh, yeah, we had that problem there.
Care was bombed.
Yep.
And the thing that was amazing to me was not the destruction, not the evil, but was the amazing messages and Bible verses that were written on the side of there. That's what this debate is all about. It is about love versus evil. And we need to make sure that we are on the right side of history.
No, you can't do that.
Our most vulnerable.
It's a bad idea. You go down that road, you start calling people who are pro-choice evil, you never get them to vote for you ever. You can't do that. Bad idea. Giuliani. Bad idea. Don't do that. You want votes. I mean, if you want to just yell, good. You want votes, don't do that.
What do you say to pro-abortion New York voters to convince them to vote for you?
Thank you. And I'm pro. What do you do for pro-abortion, he says, versus pro-choice? It's fine to get to vote for you. What do you say to get them to vote for you? Yeah, not what Giuliani said. That's not going to work.
Pro-life, the candidate endorsed by the New York State Right to Life. And what I would say to people.
So what he says is, yeah, I'm going to tell you, I'm endorsed by Right to Life. That's not going to make a vote for you, homeboy.
People who might not agree with my pro-life position is I think that partial birth abortion that we see, the late term abortion that's legalized in New York, should be rolled back. I think a lot of people who call themselves pro-choice would agree with me. I believe that non-doctors shouldn't be performing abortion. Right now it's legal. That's wrong. We should legalize parental consent. We should legalize informed consent. We should promote adoption.
How does that get that doesn't get someone who is pro-abortion, as the guy said, to say yes to you?
More in this state. My daughters, they were born 14.5 weeks early. They were less than 1.5 pounds. In the first 2 weeks of their lives, they had intestinal surgery, both of them, lung surgery. Michaela went through, she had septic shock, stroke. The left side of her brain, a third of it was a hole. She went through a lot, and a lot of doctors, and they thought that she wasn't going to make it.
And listen to what I'm saying. All of the people, you realize, the vast majority of New York State's pro-choice. That's the truth. And some of you who are pro-life don't like that. I know I don't like it either. I don't like how a lot of New Yorkers have become, to his point, pro-abortion. A lot have become that. And I think you should be pro-choice, not pro-abortion. That's my personal view. Some people disagree. You should not be pro-abortion. That's my personal view. But you find people who actually are. And they see people who are pro-life, not as pro-life, but they see them as anti-woman. And that's happening now more and more across the country in general, but it's happening really strongly here in New York State. If you want to make this not an issue, you have to stop putting people in two buckets and saying, how do we support the woman and how do we support the baby? When you come at it that way, you will get more people to vote for you if that is your goal. Some people I know don't care if you get voted for. These guys obviously do. You've got to come through with, how do I support both the mother and the child? Otherwise, one side calls you evil, the other side calls you anti-woman, blah, blah, blah. Nobody wins.
But through the miracles of modern medicine, the power of prayer, their will to live, these girls are doing great. They're finishing 10th grade. They're turning 16. They're in honors classes.
You haven't convinced anybody.
Getting better grades than I did when I was their age. Thank God they had the ability to be born, to survive and thrive. We need to respect and protect life.
Before we go to Mr. Astorino, can I give Mr. Wilson 15 seconds to respond to Congressman Zeldin, who said, if you're pro-choice, you may agree with his policy. Your thoughts?
No, I do agree. We've actually talked about this before, in that I think the laws of the state go too far. And, I talked about my personal view is the point.
I agree with that. I do think the laws in the state go too far. I agree. I think he's right.
Liability is the line of demarcation. Now, I've also said I'm not going to fight to change the laws. I'm focused on my turnaround plan for the state. I think a lot of the problems politicians do is they promise a lot of things to a lot of people and accomplish nothing.
No, he's right on this one, right? He's not going to fight to change the law. He's not. But the other part is, do you really want to die on a hill where you get nothing done? That's hard, right? That's a tough one. It absolutely is tough.
I will get my turnaround plan done, and that's what I'm focused on.
Mr. Astorino, the same question to you. How are you going to get pro-choice people to vote for you?
Well, first of all, my 3 kids are here today, and the 3 happiest days of my life were
that
when
solves
they were
it.
Born. And I think most people understand that what you see on a sonogram is a living human being. And we can't even get those real radical abortionists to agree when life begins, or if it is a
real radical abortionists.
A child.
That's going to get people.
We're celebrating in New York, as we mentioned, lighting up iconic buildings to celebrate allowing partial birth abortion, allowing a child to be killed the moment before birth, if that's what the mother chooses. That's not where New Yorkers are. Even pro-choice New Yorkers say that's way too far.
He's right.
Yes, I think I'm going to talk about abortion and how we can reduce it in New York. We need to make sure that it is, we're putting money in prenatal care and for adoption and
none of them have an answer.
Pregnancy care centers. These things should be supported. So we tell people, you have choices. We're behind you if you want to have this child. We will help you do that. And I've won awards by Westchester Putnam Right to Life for my sanctity of life. And by the way,
that's not going to convince you.
I gotta go.
I vetoed a clinic access.
Do you guys understand there is 0 chance of Republican winning in this state? Do you understand what I'm saying? 0 chance. Republicans are not going to win the statewide election. It's not going to happen. Anyone who tells you that is delusional or lying.
This bill not going to happen. Not allow people to peacefully protest.
This next question is for Congressman Zeldin and Mr. Wilson. We've seen the great migration from blue states over the past 10 years, with reports that 1.4 million people have left New York since 2010, leading the nation in out-migration. Many of those leaving are high earners who pay a large percentage of the state taxes. What would you both do to cut from the budget to lower taxes and increase affordability for New Yorkers? And Congressman Zeldin, you're first.
Well, we saw it last year when they created a multi-billion-dollar fund for people who aren't even legally in our country. We shouldn't have been funding multiple $billion for this excluded workers fund. We see money that can be saved in Medicaid with the way that conversion to long-term care was done in this state, the way that for-profit, non-for-profit rules in Medicaid are being abused. And there's people out there who'll be watching this debate. We're talking about you. Yeah, individuals who are making 7 to 8 figures cheating the Medicaid system. I believe that there are billions of dollars to be saved just inside of Medicaid alone. What you look at where.
So how are you going to cut taxes to get the rich here? Well, we're going to reduce spending by, not helping out undocumented workers, which most people in cities want and need. That's why they support it. That's why so many cities are sanctuary cities for undocumented workers, because they want them. The local people want them. In New York City, they literally will give you a New York City ID if you're an undocumented worker. And the state provides a fund to give people who are undocumented workers money. You think that's going to fly in the state that does this? You've got to give them better answers than this and cut Medicaid. This is New York State. Do you know your audience?
Florida now has millions more people than Florida than New York. It didn't used to be that way.
Correct. He's
Their
right.
budget's about half the size. And the trajectory of the tens of billions of dollars of added funding over the last few years, it's unsustainable. And we need to have long-term budgeting in this state, but we have to be able to afford as well to provide relief for all New Yorkers, whether you're a senior struggling to
didn't give an answer at all.
You're a young.
He didn't give an answer. The reality is you have to find another way of raising money so that you can begin to support local people supporting themselves. This is a long-term plan. They have been hammering us for decades and destroying this state. It's not fixed overnight with one thing, with one policy. The biggest thing we can do, as I mentioned before, is my NIST idea, the New York State Social Trust. That is a trust that's created so that permanent capital can put money into this large trust. Why? It is easy for them to put the money in. They will actually see how how you can make money based upon dividends every year. It's better for them. They'll stop investing in real estate, which keeps the real estate price market up so high. They'll invest in that instead. The money made from that, which is a separate company from the government, so the government can't just take it, will then pay for other services like Medicare and such. And that's how you begin to lower spending. That's an actual plan. So
family, you can have your first kid in the basement of mom and dad's house.
Yeah. Wow. I don't want that. Paula says, oh, Larry, I really see why now he didn't run as Republican. Yeah. People say, Larry, run as Republican. How am I going to run on that stage? I'm going to yell at them all. I'm just going to be calling them names all day. They would have even not even let me in. They would not even have let me in anyway. So it wouldn't even matter. So yeah. So no chance Republicans going to win this. Thank you. And you're never going to win as Republican. Republicans can't win this state. She gets it. Not with these candidates anyways. And I like one or two of them, but not a chance of winning. Correct. No chance of winning in this state. If you know New York State, and I travel this state every single year, I know New York State better than most people because I travel it so much. No way they win.
Or go buy your own home. Okay. But yes, even if you're a high earner, there are people who are deciding to flee because of the geniuses raising their taxes to the highest income tax rate in the entire country.
All right, Mr. Wilson.
Sure, Eric. So the fact that we lead the nation out migration is a symptom of a broken state. Our highest taxes, crime rate, all that drives that out migration, and it is a slow death spiral.
He's right.
When I talk about my tax cut of 20% for income and property taxes, the way we pay for that is I will cut at least $25 billion in spending from the state budget. How? I want people to understand, one, how to do that and the specifics of that. I have spent my entire business career coming into fat, bloated, mismanaged companies.
Yep.
Companies that are in or near bankruptcy, just like New York State. And then working with those companies to right size them, to focus on the things that really matter.
Yeah, but when you go, I know I've done it myself too. Not companies as large as him. I've done it on smaller companies, right? So I understand what he's talking about. When you go into those companies, you have the power to cut and chase and whatever. And many of these people become vulture capitalists. They chop it up. The average person is screwed over and then they sell it. That's not going to happen in New York State. So sounds good, but no.
And invest resources there and to strip away everything else. And when we do that process in New York State, I think we're going to cut a lot more than $25 billion, but I always underpromise and overdeliver, and we will get that done. Specifically, I'll give you some examples. Governor Hochul has $8 billion in slush funds that she uses to reward political interest. They're in her budget. The legislature approved 8 of the 10 billion she proposed. All that goes to zero. Corporate welfare, same thing. The vast majority of that goes to zero. We will be able to cut that without hurting programs. In fact, we will be investing in making programs better. Massachusetts spends 50% less.
Gotta go. I want to keep
Talk about Massachusetts next.
All right. This is from Mr. Giuliani and Mr. Astorino. Medicare waste, fraud, and abuse in New York amounts to billions upon billions of tax dollars every year. No one fixes it. How do you go about doing that? It's a very tall task. Mr. Giuliani, you're first.
Well, first and foremost, it actually, aside from K through 12 spending, which basically is to the teachers union, it is the number one cost in our state budget. So the number two cost in our $220 billion state budget. You know, I mentioned before.
So some of you might know, our education budget in New York State is over $60 billion. Now Medicaid, Medicare is over 50. Yes, $1 billion. Yeah.
For seniors getting that are 65 years and older, that are making less than $100,000, getting a property tax credit. I would love to see some of those property taxes actually get applied to Medicaid right there, because to be honest, when we look at where this has gone, it has been affordable. It's been one of the reasons why we've seen so many New Yorkers, as you mentioned before, continue to flee this state.
He does not answer the question. Here's how you fix this. And you do it by, it's going to sound silly, but you literally do it by raising the copays. You hear me out before you tell me I'm crazy. The copays right now are very low. I think it's $1 and yeah, I think it's like, was it $3? Something like, it's like $1 to see a doctor and like $3 to see a specialist and like $12 to go to emergency room. Something like that. It's like 1, 3, and 12. It's something like, it's very low. I don't remember the exact numbers. You should multiply all of that by at least 3, if not by more. So now it goes from $3 to $9 as a copay. It goes from $12 to $36 to an emergency room. You might go, but Larry, there are some people who can't afford $9 to go to a doctor. That's a lie. That's not true. That is, you just made that up. If you have an address, you can afford $9 to go to the doctor. I'm not joking. You can. You can afford $36 to go to the emergency room. If you can't, don't go to the emergency room. Go to the doctor and stop making the emergency room being packed up when people who need emergencies like have a heart attack and stuff because you stubbed your toe because it's $3 for you. So no, right? Shelly puts up, just pops out the highest copayment in Medicaid is $20. That's the highest. Go a little bit higher. Why? Because 2 reasons why this matters. If it's a little bit higher, people stop using it for frivolous stuff, and they do. You've been to an emergency room and you've seen it. That's where most of that fraud waste abuse begins to happen, right? That's the biggest piece right there is that chunk. But second, ambulances. Ambulances cost almost nothing. So what do they do? I get sick. I call an ambulance. By the way, drop me off at my sister's house. I'm not joking. The ambulance drivers call these people frequent flyers. It's so common. It happens all the time. These guys don't talk about that. Why? Because they don't know. Because they don't talk to people like I do. They aren't out in every county talking to people who come to complain to me. They don't know this. I do. Look, if you don't have an address and you are homeless, right, or unhoused, it's free anyway. You're not paying. They can't get you. So it's already free. But if you have an address, you can afford $9. Larry, how can you say that? Their nails are done and they've got cell phones. You can handle $9 to go to a doctor. It's not going to kill you. You'll be fine. You'll be fine. But more importantly, the people who are taking advantage of this are doing it because no one will chase them. Why? The numbers are too low. If I have to come after you for $50, no one's going to come after you. They just let it go and they write it off and the fraud's gone. But now if all of a sudden you're going 36 here, 20 here, 40 here, now you owe $200-300. A collections company will literally purchase all that debt and chase you. Once people realize that will happen, people will stop doing it. They do it because there is no repercussions. No one actually says that. I say that. I'm not being mean. I want people to have good services. You can have it for $9. Anyone who goes to the doctor more than that, you go to a hospital. If you go to a hospital, it's covered anyway. So why are you worried? That's not the issue. So yes, Jackie says people use ambulances as taxis. Yes, I say that publicly. If anyone's an EMT or yes, they literally will use ambulances as a taxi. But once an ambulance costs $35 or $70, whatever it costs, more than now 12. Well, now Uber's cheaper. You'll use Uber now because it's cheaper, right? And you might think differently about going to an ambulance when you just go to a doctor. Just go to the doctor, right? You stub your toe, go to the doctor. You don't have to go to the emergency room, but people do it. But something else, because of how our system works, many times people can't get good doctors because of their bad insurance. So they use the emergency room because when they know the right doctor's on. I'm not joking. This is a thing. This is an actual scam. They will use doctors that they know will be at certain emergency rooms on time. And doctors will tell them this. It's also a scam. Hey, come to the emergency room on so-and-so. I'm on call. And they go to get that doctor so they can do Medicare scams. That literally happens. They don't say that. They don't call at all. Yes. Shelly says they use Medicab to go buy drugs or sell them. Also true. Who's saying this? This guy is, because I know it's true. That's what actually happens.
We need to make sure that we're addressing our health care here, not through single payer systems like the Democrats in the Assembly and in the state Senate have proposed and have actually signed the law, but is actually making sure that we're pushing back to make sure we're doing everything we can to be competitive from a healthcare perspective. We right now, unfortunately, have not been competitive in this state, whether it regards to healthcare or education. We need to make sure we bring competitiveness back to the state of New York.
They're falling back to the party of no ideas.
Again, I had to do this in Westchester. We had a huge deficit.
Of course,
we cleaned that up, and we made sure everything was stable with regard to our finances. We have right now in our state, citizens are treated better. I'm sorry, non-citizens are treated better than citizens.
So he has no plan, and he goes back to let's beat up on the undocumented people because that's not the answer.
I'll tell you why. We have a $2 billion fund, $2 billion fund for those who are here illegally. And I've been the only one so far. You've heard these secret migrant flights from the southern border. They're coming up from El Paso into Westchester.
I thought this was how to fix Medicaid fraud.
Buses. These are 18, 19, 20, and older
they're back to it again.
illegal immigrants. They then
Democrats,
get
the party of bad ideas.
$2 billion
Republicans, the party of no ideas again.
Those who are here
with some ideas,
and they're elderly, they get Medicaid from New York. That's not even allowed by the federal government, but New York picks up the tab.
Correct.
So we'll start with that by treating our own citizens with respect and cutting costs for our own citizens as opposed to those who are here illegally. And why I'm the only one sounding the alarm on this. This is a national security issue. This is a finance issue as well because it affects everybody and everywhere. I have no idea, but you're a member of Congress, Lee. You should be doing something.
Eric, can I pick up on that?
Had a punch Lee.
Mr. Zeldin,
Had a punch Lee.
Yeah, so President Trump was doing an outstanding job securing our southern border, and we should have finished construction of the border wall. We should have been ramping up interior.
This is Medicaid.
We should be supporting our ICE and our Customs and Border Patrol rather than throwing them under the bus as the Biden administration.
How about Medicare?
I've been advocating for cutting off the Biden administration travel agency where they're providing the flights, they're giving phones and other goodies. We shouldn't be rewarding and incentivizing illegal entry. And it's not just people coming across, it's fentanyl and it's killing our kids. So we have to see Congress take action once the House flips this November.
Go ahead.
Okay, if the House is going to flip, why don't you stay? You're in Congress. Go flip the House. If you believe that, go flip the House and go do your work there. Instead of doing this thing, which you're going to lose. This is just a money grab for him. He's not going to win. He's going to get a bunch of money, and he's going to get out of Congress. He's going to get a TV show, or he'll be on Newsmax, or he'll be on Fox News. That's what he's doing this for. He cannot win the governorship, and he doesn't want to be in Congress anymore because he knows he can't get anything done in Congress. So he's leaving with a bunch of cash and then moving on.
Get 30 seconds on the
It's a money grab thing.
Let me get Mr. Estorino.
You're on foreign affairs. You're supposed to be making sure these flights aren't coming from the southern border into our own neighborhoods. They're going into Long Island where you live. They're going into Westchester and the Hudson Valley and throughout the state. And nobody gets any answers from our own government, including the federal government. There's been no oversight on this whatsoever by you. I'm the only one sounding the alarm on this. It is a huge public safety issue, public health issue, and the public has a right to know. We're paying the bills, and we get a big middle finger from our own governor as well as the president, and no answers from anybody in Congress.
So Mr. Estorino likes to make believe like he's the only person who's talking about illegal immigration, and that's just not
in New York. What's happening?
But that's not true. So what we need for this November 8th, we have an opportunity to flip the House of Representatives. One of the ways that we do it,
why don't you do that?
The former chief of police right here in Rochester, Laurent Singletary, is going to get elected to the House of Representatives.
Okay, not in Rochester. He's not. Not in Rochester. He's not. Why don't you do that? Because you're afraid you're going to lose your own seat. That's why. He's afraid he's going to get redistricted out of his own seat. That's why he's running. He was worried he'd get redistricted out of his own seat. So he runs for governor, raises a whole bunch of money, puts it in his pocket, and then leaves and goes works for Fox News or whatever he's going to work for. Newsmax, whatever.
To take the gavels out of the hands of Pelosi. And
if you're Republican, he's stealing your money.
It's about a battle for the heart and soul of our country and our state right now. And one of the ways that we're going to accomplish this, to have more oversight, to be able to control the agenda, and to control Congress and hold the Biden administration accountable, is electing more people like Laurent Singletary to Congress.
Okay.
So Eric, just 30 seconds on the actual question on Medicaid. All right. So this is
let's do 15 because I got more questions.
It's hugely fundamental. It's $91 billion, the most expensive program in the country, and the lowest quality. It's a lose-lose. That's right. Exactly what I focus on. We have to make sure it delivers quality care at a much lower cost. Massachusetts does it for 1/3 less, and it's #1 in the country. That is what we can do. And just on that alone, we can save billions of dollars and deliver better quality health care for people.
All right, let's do this. I want to do this. I want to ask this question. I'm prepping my control room because it's not necessarily in the right order, but I love this question. I want to get to this. You've all been openly critical of Soros-supported DAs, such as Alvin Bragg. You've all mentioned it so far, for being soft on crime. Noteworthy. All four of you have said that you would use the governor's power to remove Bragg if he did not start prosecuting crime more aggressively. Mr. Wilson, let's start with you. You contributed to Mr. Bragg's campaign. How do you justify that support with your position?
Dodge.
Start with you, sir.
Yeah, it's
Jump
very
down.
simple. It has nothing to do with, I didn't ever support his positions. We went to college together. 2 years ago, one of our college classmates asked me to make a contribution to him. He had been a moderate in college. His positions weren't public. I gave him $1,000. That was it. We had never supported his positions. His first memo came out a year later. And as soon as I was asked.
Wrong answer. You do what Trump, you guys haven't learned? You do what Trump did. You go, yeah, I gave money. I give everybody money. I buy all these politicians. I'm rich. I buy all the politicians. Everybody went, well done. No one fought him. Double down. Look, Harry, when you're pro-choice, when you actually just came clean and said, yep, I'm pro-choice. I know it's a pro-life audience, but I'm pro-choice. Yeah, it was all right. They're like, fine. At least you were honest. You're dodging. Don't dodge. See, yeah, I give more money. I give you money. I give you all money. Yes, do that. The crowd will be fine with you. Don't dodge. Bad idea. Don't dodge. I hope your people are watching this and tell you in the future, don't dodge this question. Jump in it.
About it, I said that is incredibly disappointing. That is not the guy I knew, and I would fire him using the powers under Article 13. I've been very public about this. I made a mistake. I'm going to acknowledge my mistakes. And if I've known 2 years ago when he was not public, I would never have given him $1.
Okay, Mr. Giuliani, you have a minute.
Yeah, well, I was the first candidate to come out there and actually hold a press conference calling, actually have recall on there. You can stop being a child, Lee. First candidate to actually come on.
Whoa! Stop being a child. He gave him the hand. He just gave Lee that. Watch, Lee will not like this. Lee will get pissed off. Lee does not control his temper very well.
Out there and do that. And to be honest, look, the governor needs to invoke Article 8, Section 13B of the New York State Constitution. The fact that Kathy Hochul is playing to her Democratic base instead of actually protecting the welfare in each and every other New Yorker tells you everything that you need to know about Democrats in Albany right now. That's why I have said that I will fire any single district attorney like Alvin Bragg, like the DA in Brooklyn as well, and any other one that chooses not to prosecute.
Do you understand how bad this is?
An armed robbery. As I said right at the top.
No, let local people repeal. I'm sorry, recall them.
And there are many of them.
Local people recall. That's what California does, and they're right. That guy in San Fran's gone, as he should be gone.
We need to make sure we send a very clear message that we are going to allow stop, question, and frisk again, that we are going to allow broken windows policing, and that we are going to.
Why don't you let local people be policed how they want to be policed?
Mr. Zeldin, I'm going to give you, Congressman, I'm going to give you a minute 15 to respond, and then your minute.
Well, so I held the press conference with Councilman Joe Borelli, Councilwoman Joanne Areola, Councilwoman Ina Vernikov in front of Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg's office. That took place. That was the first press conference that actually took place in this issue. Just like I was the first candidate to call for reinstating the death penalty and all sorts of other initiatives that get followed.
I wouldn't be proud of that one, Lee. That's not a good one. Lee, you're like kill them all. Man, this show, you have really just opened this up. Wow. Okay. That's death penalty. That'll solve it.
And I believe that the Buffalo shooter deserves the death penalty and that we should bring it back.
Buffalo shooter deserves death penalty. That's going to stop people from shooting up. All of these shootings are basically public suicides. In every single case, either one of three things happens. The guy gets caught there, the guy dies there, or the guy escapes and turns himself in. Every single time. What's death penalty going to do? They're accepting their fate.
Here in this state, Alvin Bragg has to go. On day one, I get sworn in. The first thing I'm going to do is fire Alvin Bragg. You know what the second thing I'm going to do? All COVID mandates still in place. And you know what the third thing I'm going to do? I'm going to appoint a special prosecutor for Andrew Cuomo's deadly nursing home order and cover-up.
Not bad.
And one of the reasons why Kathy Hochul should be fired is because she was either complicit or out to lunch on every single scandal.
Now, he didn't answer the question at all, but he's got some good red meat, and I'm actually enjoying some of the red meat. So I'm enjoying some of the red meat.
There was the COVID testing scandal. It was the deadly nursing home order and cover-up that followed. It was the $5.1 million self-congratulatory book deal using taxpayer-funded staff to help write it. We're picking Brian Benjamin, who's been making a career running from the law, and that's why I chose Allison Esposito as our state's next lieutenant governor. She's made a career of enforcing the law.
I'll get to Mr. Estorino 1 second. You have 15 seconds, Mr. Giuliani.
Yeah, well, look, I think this is just typical of Lee, who honestly is a flip-flopper. This is a guy who a couple of years ago said said that President Trump made racist statements and then lied to you last night, ladies and gentlemen. Unfortunately, he's going to flip and flop. You were with Trump before you were against him. You're against him before that. I can't even tell. Right. You can't even get it straight.
15, Mr. Zeldin.
Sorry to say.
Yeah, so unfortunately, that's just not true. And if you go back and you look at the clip that my opponent put out from a CNN article interview, it actually selectively edited what I had stated, and what I was doing in that interview was that I said that President Trump was not a racist, and the CNN hosts kept trying to get me to admit to it, and I said he's not a racist, and that's unfortunate.
You said,
but as far as
your definition, that he is racist in terms of the comments
that he
made.
You selectively edited the video.
You said, no, I didn't. You can go on. It's on
CNN.
YouTube.
All right.
And the truth is,
I like Trump more than you. No, I like Trump more than you.
We have a lot more. We have a lot more.
I told you Zeldin will get pissed. He doesn't like. He's not good with that.
Very quickly.
I mean, listen. For somebody whose claim to fame was that Chris Farley made fun of him on Saturday Night Live for being an obnoxious kid, becoming more obnoxious and get kicked off the Duke golf team. And then you basically get positioned as the Chick-fil-A runner at the White House, outranked by
the Chick-fil-A runner at the White House. Lee is just punching back. Look at him. He called him the Chick-fil-A runner at the White House. Man, I told you Lee would get mad. Lee does not hold his temper well. When you start beating him up, he just starts swinging. And he just started swinging. Go, Lee.
White House Easter egg
right now.
So listen,
he said he was outranked by the White House Easter egg, Easter bunny. That's what he said. He was outranked by him. That's how low Giuliani was in totem pole. Man.
The reality is, Andrew,
gentlemen,
you're
sometimes Trump.
Gentlemen,
the reality.
Gentlemen, I love the heat. I love the heat.
You should get a job.
Congressman,
you should get a job.
Andrew, stop.
Oh, he's
Mr.
hammering him.
The question to you, sir, what will you do about Mr. Bragg and DAs similar to Mr. Bragg?
Well, fire them immediately. But look, I think Andrew was right. You know, what we've seen with Lee over the years.
Watch Lee turn.
Lee gets very defensive, and I would be too, because he has to defend his record.
That's different.
So here's a guy who had to make decisions in Albany.
Yep.
And he went with the establishment, the status quo. I am running.
It's not wrong.
To get rid of. I am running to get rid of the radicals and the rhinos in New York. And I will tell you this.
Look at him. He just called him a rhino.
Unfortunately, Lee made the list. You know what list it is? All these different organizations that rate Republicans in the House of Representatives as liberal or conservative.
Oh, no.
He made the list. He is in the top, one of the top liberal Republicans in the House of Representatives. Now, that's on
come on, Lee.
Record. If you don't think it's true, go right now to @RobAstorino on Twitter, and you go right to the rankings. He is ranked more liberal than Liz Cheney.
Let me give Congressman a chance to respond, then we will move on.
Oh, she brought up Kings.
Well, I guess it's pretty clear for the listeners at home. You'll know who's in first place and who's the front runner in this race. As far as my record, I've now won 7 consecutive races in purple suburban districts.
Now this is I've won 7 consecutive races in purple districts. This is accurate. New York's not purple. New York is deep, deep blue, if not the bluest. 3-1 Democrat to Republican, with Republicans literally leaving by the hundreds every day for Florida, Texas, and Tennessee. By the hundreds every day. I'm not making that up. Your homework, that's 100% true. Every day, hundreds of New Yorkers, the vast majority, conservative and Republicans, packing up and leaving New York every single day. So you can be purple all you want. This state's blue.
Took out 2 incumbent Democrats along the way. We took out an incumbent in 2010 who was in the state Senate. And
note what he falls back to. Lee, you suck, you're bad. Lee, you're this, you're that. But I'm a winner. That's what he falls back to. I win. That's all that matters. I know I'm corrupt and a flip-flopper, but I win. So do that.
We flipped control of the state Senate. I took out a 6-term, 12-year incumbent. My opponent here, Rob Astorino, has now lost 3 consecutive races for 3 different offices. His last race for state Senate in 2020, he lost his own county of Westchester.
I hate doing this, guys. I got to break this up for just a minute. Hold on, folks. We have a lot more. We have to take a break from the action. More from these candidates. It's heating up. It's heating up. Stick around. We'll be right back.
I gotta go past. I just want to go past the
Let's hear from the candidates. Let's hear from the candidates, please.
They were commercials.
Answers will be 30 seconds. 30 seconds. Now, Mr. Wilson, you have been endorsed by Unity New York, which favors open primaries. In such a scenario, Democrats could.
I don't know why Unite New York picked him. What a terrible move by Unite. What were they thinking? Right? They could have had me. Unite could have had me. And they were like, no, we're going to go with rich guy Wilson because he'll help. He's a crappy debater. And he's already said the second he loses this thing, he's going to get behind a Republican anyway. So Unite has nobody. That was a brilliant move. Unite, brilliant move.
Who's on the Republican ballot and vice versa. What do you say to Republicans sitting in the auditorium and watching on television right now who want a candidate who represents their values and not the values of Democrats who could...
Now, he's talking about open primaries, which I'm for, specifically when it comes to gerrymandered districts. If you're in a gerrymandered district where, you know it's always going to be Republican, always going to be a Democrat, that's always going to happen. Well, then if you're not the Republican or Democrat, you don't have any power. In New York City, it's 6-1 Democrat to Republican. 6-1 in New York City. So if you're a Republican in New York City, you have no say. So why shouldn't you be able to vote in a primary that's open to Democrats, right? If you change gerrymandering, I would consider getting rid of open primaries. But as long as you're going to have gerrymandered districts, you got to give people a choice. They're not having a voice in their government. So yeah, I'm for open primaries. I know some of you aren't. I am 100%. The open primaries has to work because of the gerrymandering. And you get rid of gerrymandering, and I'm open. Without that, you have to. I have too many people who have no say in their government. It's un-American, and that's the only answer right now. So yes, and Unite went, no, let's not have Larry Sharpe. Let's have this guy.
Vote in a Republican primary, especially in a state like this.
Well, that's just totally incorrect, Eric. That is not what a definition of open primary is at all. So let's be clear about that.
That's literally what definition of open primary is. Literally. Wilson is either lying or an idiot. I don't know. I don't think he's an idiot. So he's lying or he doesn't know any better, or ignorant. He's lying or ignorant. One of the two. Or he's just backing out now and going, Unite, who cares about Unite? Maybe he's probably already bailed on Unite already. That's probably the problem. He's already bailed on him already.
The facts, number one. Secondly, every candidate in this stage interviewed for and competed for the Unite New York endorsement, and I got it. Why did I get it?
You got it. Why'd you get it? Because you're rich. That's why you got it. Because you're rich. And number two, you don't like Trump. Those are your two reasons why you got it. You're rich and you don't like Trump. I guess I wasn't hard enough never Trumper for them. I get it.
Because I'm the one most focused on government transparency and making reform and ethics reform and driving that home in a broken Albany. Because I'm not a politician. I'm not beholden to anybody. I cannot be bought. And I will fix Albany and take it away from the career politicians and make it work for the people of the state. Now, what I said was I think independents should have a voice. Because we have a lot of independents, and that is
independents should have a voice, is what he says. So he's not really for open primaries. Unite, you listening? He has already stabbed you in the back. You listening? You can call me if you want to change your mind.
Is what I talked about, not anything about Democrats voting in a Republican.
Got it. Mr. Giuliani, on your website, most of your campaign materials say Giuliani for governor. One word is missing. Andrew, are you capitalizing on your father's name instead of putting yourself forward is the question.
Well, it's kind of my point, right? Giuliani does have some of that. That's true, right? There is some of that. However, I got to be forward. If I was Andrew Giuliani, particularly in New York City, I would too. So I think I might do the same thing about him.
I'm very proud of my name. And people would say, well, with a famous last name, it's easy to run in politics. I would tell you with a name like Andrew, it's very difficult to be the leading candidate for governor in a Republican primary. Look, I'm proud of the 4 years that I worked for President Donald J. Trump in the White House. I'm the only person on this stage that always supported President Donald J. Trump and didn't call him other kinds of names. And I am very, very proud of, I think, New York's greatest crime fighter, Rudolph W. Giuliani.
All right. Congressman Zeldin.
See, he owned it. That's not bad. I mean, look, if you got something, don't dodge. Just own it and move on. Just own it's it. He's Giuliani's son. He can't get around that fact. Just own it. I agree.
In flyers sent out, Mr. Wilson has you and Andrew Cuomo pictured as pilots, and he calls you Cuomo's wingman because you voted for his budgets, he says. How do you defend voting for Governor Cuomo's budget, sir?
So what happens is that the governor proposes a budget, and then the Senate passes their own one-house budget, and then you try to reach a three-way agreement. So the 4 years I was there, instead of passing Cuomo's budget, the state Senate passed our own budget with a self-imposed 2% spending cap, and then we reached an agreement. And as I pointed out last week, this was fact checked. Someone did the research, and they
now he goes, someone did the research. He won't say it was Politico. He's like, I better shut up. I better not say Politico again. Some random person did the research. Yeah.
Pointed out that out of 63 state senators, there were only 2 state senators who voted against Andrew Cuomo more than I did. But actually, at the beginning of 2011, Harry Wilson was writing an op-ed in Daily News calling on us to support Andrew Cuomo's agenda.
That is not true.
It's 100% true.
It is not true.
That's all you have. You just say it's not true.
First of all, everything Lee Zeldin said is politician talk where I rolled over and gave Andrew Cuomo the keys to the kingdom.
That's politician talk for I rolled over and gave Cuomo the keys to the kingdom. Oh, yeah. I would have said rolled over and something else, but that's fine. I'll take King's
exactly what happened. Fiscal conservatives like Kieran Lawler have been voting against the budget for years, and Governor Pataki, when he was a state senator before he ran for governor, voted against the Mario Cuomo budgets. True fiscal conservatives vote their principles, not just roll over because they're told
the
by
Senate
the leadership.
did not
I
pass
would respect
the 4 years
Mr.
I was there
Zeldin more
pass
if he
budget.
honestly said, "Hey, I screwed up. I was a young state senator. I was trying to get a job in college."
Harry's right.
With the party.
You want me to lie?
No, because you did screw up.
That was true.
It's
no, the state Senate didn't pass the budget.
What do you mean didn't pass the budget?
How can the state Senate not pass the budget?
No one did not pass Cuomo's budget.
High school civics believes anything you're saying.
Thank you. Yes.
That's the truth.
Yep.
It's just not true. You could go back and look at it. Just like you tried to fact check Eric Bolling just now, who asked you a question about open primaries. You say, no, that doesn't mean that people who aren't Republicans
did
vote
clear it
in
up.
primaries.
It actually doesn't mean that.
Actually, Eric did his research before he asked the question. Open primaries are exactly that.
That is
there
not
are
what it means,
Republicans
Lee.
who are in the audience who don't want non-Republicans to vote in the primary. But this is the first thing you do. That you instantly say that what's true is false.
What I said in the 2011 op-ed,
Chevy is Ford. Just be honest with Republican voters.
We are being honest. You're the only one who's not. There are 3 people being honest on the stage.
Mr. Wilson, go ahead. You have the stage.
There are 3 people being honest on the stage, and it's consistent. Rob, Andrew, and me. And Lee is consistently lied and deflected. Consistently. In that op-ed, which we tweeted out, I specifically, I want to finish, Lee, because you just keep talking. You never do anything, but you keep talking. In 2011, in that op-ed, the Daily News, I said the Senate Republicans need to show some backstory and actually push back on Andrew Cuomo.
Snake oil salesman.
Congressman, please let him finish.
See, you know why he does that? Because he can't handle the truth.
No, I can. The problem is that you can't speak the truth.
In 2011,
somebody says something,
gentlemen, we got to move on.
Zelda's not control his temper well at all.
I'm going to finish my point.
I can't.
No, I'm going to finish my point.
Please,
is on my Twitter feed.
Mr. Wilson, please. It's Mr. Astorino's turn. You enter this primary having lost the governor's race in 2014, sir, your own reelection as Westchester County executive and a state Senate seat 2 years ago. Why? Explain to this public right now in this auditorium and the voters watching.
Tell me about Westchester.
Why would Republican voters have confidence that you can beat a Democrat in this state?
No question. Look, Lee talks about Suffolk County. I'm the only one on this stage undefeated in Suffolk County. I won in 2014.
I have too.
Lee lost. No, congratulations. Thank you too. Lee lost a congressional race by 17 points. Suffolk County is a deep red county. It went for Trump twice. Westchester County is 3-1 Democrat. Trump lost by 37 points.
Yeah, now it is.
I outpaced him by 25. So
yeah, back when it was more purple.
I can win in the key suburbs because I can attract Democrats and independents. But here's a key thing to think about.
Can't attract Democrats.
Needs to grow. We should have liberal Republicans like Lee Zeldin in it as well. Okay. We also
liberal Republicans like Lee Zeldin.
All right.
Think of this. He voted. Lee Zeldin voted with Cuomo 90% of the time when he was in the state Senate.
Wow.
He voted with
Why don't you just say 110%?
He voted with Trump
I need to get Mr.
89%
Zeldin
of the time.
for final rebuttal
that
on
should
this
tell you
question.
where he is.
Sure.
Well, I've now won 7 consecutive races. Rob Astorino's lost 3
winner.
consecutive races for 3 different offices.
I'm a winner.
I'm a winner. 2020 was for state Senate. My first win when that 2010 race, by the way, there were more Democrats than Republicans. There was a Democrat incumbent
3-1.
who won by 16 points, and that person between him and his father were there for 30 years. I got reelected in that state Senate district, in a district that has more Democrats than Republicans. And
Eric.
on this stage, you just have people who keep losing. And they say, well, I lost. It was really close in this race. And it was really close when I lost in this race. It was really close when I lost in this race. People out who are paying attention are scared for the future of this state. They're hitting their breaking point.
They want a winner.
Back a winner, and they will when they vote for
I
me
knew
next
that.
Tuesday. And they will not win in November. We fire Kathy Hochul.
They want a winner.
Mr. Zeldin, Mr. Astorino, please, final.
Here's the difference between us. In 2014, I ran against Cuomo because I took him on. I knew the corrupt thug that he is. And
He's right. I'm going to give Astorino was a good candidate in 2014. I agree. He's right.
Let me speak, Lee. It's a very liberal thing to do. Let me speak.
Oh, it's a liberal thing to do. Let me speak.
I took Andrew Cuomo on in 2014, and we got the closest any Republican has for governor. But you know what? Look this up, folks. I'm tweeting this tonight right now at Rob Astorino. Look this up. There was a secret PAC. This is the swampiest of swamp things.
Oh, the secret
The Senate
PAC.
Republicans that Lee was part of.
I endorsed.
They had a secret
We did
PAC.
rallies together.
Look at the New York
I
Post.
have to move on. Come on, guys.
Zeldin just cuts him off. He's mad. Zeldin just mad. I'm yelling at
Had to
people.
deal with Cuomo.
Lee, grow up.
They would
Come
not
on,
support
let's
me.
move on.
Lee,
Rob,
grow
and
up.
Cuomo
Oh,
wouldn't
my
go
God.
after him. I knew he was corrupt then. He was an enabler of Cuomo and voted for all of his budgets.
Gas is at $5 a gallon. We have crime through the roof. Let's talk about.
All right, we're moving on. We're just going to move on. This is for all of you. Over the past 2 years, COVID has caused strains in public schools. New Yorkers have seen powerful teachers.
No, it has not. The lockdowns have done this. Don't you? You're on the right. Don't do this. Don't do this. Don't say COVID. The lockdowns did it. Don't say COVID did it. COVID, what it does, for those you don't know, COVID hurts and kills people, usually people who are over 65 with multiple comorbidities. That's what COVID does. COVID does not shut down schools, shut down businesses, lock people in homes. COVID doesn't do that. Only government can. So just be clear on what does what. Be clear on that. COVID didn't do that. Lockdowns did.
Unions that set curricula contrary to parents' values that resisted reopening schools. As governor, would you improve, how would you improve the public school system, knowing that you'll get resistance from the very, very powerful teachers' unions?
It's true.
And we'll start with you, Mr. Astorino.
Well, I'm a very big proponent of charter schools. We should have no caps in New York, and we do, and that means
not a good idea.
Low-income students are waiting, and the teachers' unions are saying
you have to change the entire system.
6% less
Absolutely
public
correct.
education students in New York right now. They're fleeing, and no child should be left out of the school that they want to go to. So I will absolutely support that. We also need to have something like the Education Investment Tax Credit, which will help our religious schools, our parochial schools, our private schools.
You do want to support. This party's right, but you don't want to tax credit, right? You want to change how you fund schooling specifically. As I mentioned earlier, my NIST, my New York State Social Trust, that should be paying for schooling directly from the trust. This immediately, within the first 2 years, if you do this right, eliminates school tax. You eliminate school tax, you'll cut property tax across New York State by about 50%. Done deal. That by default cuts property tax, and the funding comes directly from the NIST. This way, local school people don't bother trying to petition to the federal or state government. They just get their cash. What you do that, though, is you then give every individual who wants it. You get $18,000 per school per district. Doesn't matter where the school kid lives. It matters what district they are assigned to by their parents. So the parents want to swap districts, they may. I don't care how many kids are assigned to your district. There's the money you get. Great. If that school, if that's kids assigned to a district, that district can take $6,000 and give it to the parents as credit to either public school, either private school, or homeschool. That $6,000 credit allows people to start their own schools, whether locally or private or even a homeschool. You do that, you support everybody having separate localized schooling. That's the key.
Parents should have a choice.
Yes.
You know, what we saw
My
in
idea,
this
not
pandemic,
yours.
unfortunately, where the good schools still were good, they were working at home, but our bad schools were exposed, and the junk that they're teaching in schools. The other day, I had a press conference. It's on my website or social media. The nonsense, not just the CRT, but the sex and the sex ed and the talks If this were a guy showing up in a van at a playground talking like this, they'd call 911. But our teachers can talk to these kids like that. This stuff has to end, and this is why people are losing faith in our public education.
And this is my problem, right? He's right and he's wrong. Should you know? Should you ban it? No, right? Because he bans it now, then the next governor lets it happen. The governor shouldn't have any control over it all, at all. Make it completely localized. So to my point with my plan, let's say, all right, BB now says ban mandatory school, right? Ban control over school. Kinda. What I'm saying is you as the parent can choose to go to your public school or go to private school or to homeschool, and that local school districts decide what they want to teach. If your local school district thinks CRT is an awesome idea and the parents think it's great, let the kids be taught it. The parents think it's fine. Let the parents get what they want for their kids. You don't agree to it? No worries. Here's a credit. Go to your private school, homeschool your kid, whatever works best for you. If there's enough parents around in either the districts next to you or your district who want to start a private school, they will. You now have money to do so. There'll be a private school that will not teach CRT if you don't like that. I'm not here to decide whether CRT or the sex stuff is the right thing for your parents. I'm the governor. I shouldn't be deciding that. You should. So I want to give you the power and control to have your kids learn what you think is appropriate the way you think is appropriate. That's what we should do. Banning this and banning that, then when you decide what to ban, what not to ban, now I've got the government controlling every aspect of my schooling. And what happens when a governor comes in that I don't like? Then that governor decides what my kid learns? Bad idea, bad idea. What I'm talking about is the right idea. Allow for local control school districts with the support of both private and homeschooling so that you get to teach your kids the way you think is appropriate for your kids. I don't judge anything. I judge for my kids, and you judge for yours. Now we're good. That's the libertarian answer and the right answer.
System here in New York.
Congressman Zeldin.
Competition is good. We should get rid of the cap on charter schools. We should have tax credits for school choice, educational savings accounts. We should set up.
None of that's going to work in New York State. My idea has to change how it's funded.
Go to college, and they should see that the purpose of the diploma, you get a good paying job. So get your hands on the equipment, the experience. You network with trades, and there's a good paying job waiting for you the next day.
Change K through 12 to pre-K through 10. Like I said,
move. That's going on right now up in Albany, and stick up for the yeshiva schools and all of the private parochial schools. I don't mind yeshiva schools if they think it's right. Do it up in Albany. It is important that we are empowering parents who are choosing to homeschool their kids. We should
100%.
oppose
Right on this
any COVID vaccine mandates at all on any of our not just grade school students, but higher ed as well. We shouldn't have our toddlers in masks. We should never. Yeah,
and I'm gonna stop on this one too. There are lots of parents who think that's a wonderful idea. And if you're a parent who thinks masking your I don't know why you would think that, but some parents do think masking your kids is a good idea, then mask your kids, but don't force others. That's just it. You don't mandate it. And if you do mandate it in a school, you've got private schools and homeschools, and you don't have to worry about it. And there will be schools who will be smart and go, you should not mask your kids. But that's not my point. That's my opinion. And as governor, I might be wrong. I'm not the medical expert of the world. And even if I was, it's still your kid. So stop mandating yes or no and mandate do what you feel is appropriate. There are a lot of parents who really want to mask their kids. You know what? Mask your kid. Just don't mask mine.
Never go back to remote learning. That is no substitute at all for full-time in-person learning. We have an opportunity to improve education, but it's not going to happen with Kathy Hochul.
Wrong on this too.
It's not going to happen with one-party Democrat rule. And this message for all New Yorkers, in order to save our state on behalf of our kids, we have to fire Kathy Hochul in November.
You're not the guy to do it, brother.
Giuliani.
Not you.
Well, I'm going to take this answer in a little different direction. I agree certainly with what Mr. Astorino and Lee said on that, but I would look specifically at the parental rights and education bill that was signed in Florida.
Parental rights.
And make sure we duplicate that here in New York. When I think about what's been taught to our kids, and we answered this yesterday, look, I think our kids need to learn a true history of America. The good, the bad, and the incredible, ladies and gentlemen. We live in the greatest country in the history of mankind.
Oh, okay.
When I ended up going to the hospital to pick up my baby Grace, I had on her birth certificate the option to fill out male, female, or other. There are two genders here, ladies and gentlemen. The fact that our kids are learning that there are more is absurd. And of course, I agree with tax credits and making sure that parents actually
some people think it's a good idea.
Market and those property tax dollars in their hands so they can take it to a parochial school like I went to or yeshiva school. Of course, I believe in actually making sure we raise the cap in charter schools. We absolutely do.
You got to change the whole thing. That doesn't work.
And we need to make sure
that
says,
I think he's still trying. Got some challenges, lawsuits coming up.
The primary stakeholders in our kids' education.
Mr. Wilson.
Let me be clear. None of the Republicans don't want me on the line. The Democrats didn't challenge anything I did at all. The Republicans are so afraid of me. And for you Republicans out there, this is what they want to give you. They don't want to give you me. They want to give you this. And the Republicans, they said Lee Zeldin tried to throw them off the line. He's right. Lee Zeldin literally tried to throw all three of these guys off the line and made them go and get signatures. That's correct. Each one of them had to get 15,000 signatures to be in this debate. They all had to do that except for Lee Zeldin. He tried to throw them off the ballot. They got the signatures. At the same time I was trying, which made my job even freaking harder, right? So now what happened? The Democrats aren't trying to fight me at all. They don't care. They're like, whatever. Why don't Democrats, this is my point. Why do the Democrats not challenge me? I don't care. Because they know they're going to win. They don't care. The Democrats know they're going to win. They don't care. They're like, ooh, I don't care. Put everybody in the ballot. I don't care. We're going to win. We don't care. They didn't even challenge me. Who challenged me? The Republicans did. Not only did they challenge me, they gave me a separate lawsuit outside the BOE. Yeah. 2. I got to fight more lawsuits. Why do you think I'm out here sitting there bugging you, telling me to donate? Why am I telling you to donate to me? Yeah, I got to fight lawsuits. They're making me go to court again. Again. So if you guys are Republicans, tell your Republicans to stop challenging me so I can get in the ballot. They want to make sure you have 2 choices. That you only have Kathy Hochul and Lee Zeldin. That's what they want. Kathy Hochul, Lee Zeldin. That's what they want. And if they get that, Kathy Hochul beats Lee Zeldin by at least 20 points. That's how it ends. You get exactly the same thing. You get Larry Sharpe, you got a shot at making some impact. So if you're a Republican, call your local people and say, stop challenging Larry Sharpe. So I could get back on track and running a campaign versus being in court for the next month or 2. It is horrible. So yes.
So public education is one of my most important issues. When I was a little kid in working class Greek immigrant family growing up in Johnstown, I showed up on my first day at nursery school, didn't speak a word of English. I was able to be the first in my family to go to college because of the great teachers and coaches I had in the Johnstown public school system. And I think every kid in New York deserves that same opportunity. How do we do it? First, we need more competition. I'm all for eliminating the charter school cap and vouchers to create more competition. Second, we need more focus on local control. Parents,
that's true.
I'm a father of 4 daughters. Parents
have
the greatest insights and ownership of the kids' education, and that's what should be driving all of our 100%. Changes at the local level. And third, and the biggest issue that we don't talk about because it's hard, but we have to deal with hard issues, is the curricular reboot we need to do, because we just devastated a generation of kids that are learning remotely for the last 2 years. I saw it in my own family. I saw it in my own community. And we need to focus on a reboot that would bring them back up to where they should have been over the next 3 to 5 years and drive policy changes so we don't lose a generation.
Okay, well, these last couple of questions are going to go fairly quickly. I'm going to go right to it. Important questions. I love this question. How would you describe yourself politically on a scale from Pence to Trump?
Wow.
Mr. Wilson.
I don't know how to answer that. I'm a limited government conservative in all respects.
That's a tough one.
All right. Well, there you go. Mr. Giuliani.
Giuliani. Trump and Giuliani.
Wow. See? Right in. I like that. They loved it.
2 names are that you mentioned. It's important to always be my own man.
Okay.
That's a tough one. I don't know how to answer that one.
I'm an Astorino conservative. I've proven that. But I will say this. I was on CNN defending Donald Trump for 2.5 years in the heat of battle against the Cuomos and the Don Lemons of the world, and they couldn't beat me 4-on-1 on those panels.
That's not a bad answer.
And this question.
It's a tough one.
If you don't win the Republican primary, will you endorse the winner? And again, we'll start with you, Mr. Wilson.
I literally would have said yes many times.
Thank you, Unite. You just lost your guy.
To win this thing on June 28th, but if not, and the people choose someone else, I will always back what the people say.
Mr. Astorino.
I certainly will. Lee tried to knock all 3 of us off the ballot, so we had no challenge. But
we're
here, and whoever wins, and I believe it will be me, but whoever wins, we will speak with one voice and defeat Kathy Hochul and the Radicals.
I would have said no. To be forward, I would have said no. I would have said no. These guys can't win.
The ease that they just keep lying is just incredible. The reinvention of history.
Dodge. Because he's not gonna. He can't accept saying he might lose.
I'm also endorsed by the Conservative Party.
Answer the question, Lee. Answer the question.
No, I'm saying it's false.
He's endorsed by the Conservative Party. If you are a Conservative Party person in New York State, tell them to stop challenging me. Call them up and say, stop. They're challenging me too. They're all the Conservative Republicans. They all don't want me to do it. So please.
I'm endorsed by the Conservative Party. I am also not going to lose this primary next Tuesday because everybody is focused on winning is the only option. Losing is not an option, but it is important for all of us to be one voice this time next week. It is a hard-fought primary. There are passions inside of this room and outside of the state.
Will you support
the winner? I'm going to be supporting the primary winner next Tuesday.
So the answer is
no.
no.
Even if it's not you.
You just learned a lot about him. The answer is no.
Yep.
Listen, I don't think about losing. I refuse to
It's a simple yes/no question, Lee.
Simple yes,
I'm going to be supporting the winner of the primary next Tuesday.
Just like you could not say yes or no to the fact that you had called President Trump past state racist. You can't answer this.
Wait, gentlemen,
The only reason he's up here is
listen,
he could not say yes.
He cannot take it.
I'm a viewer right now.
Listen, it's not easy to be in second, third, and fourth place. I get it.
I heard him say he would support the winner of the primary.
Thank you, Eric.
Yeah, I would take that as a viewer as whoever wins. Okay, let's leave it right there. It's time for closing statements now. Remarks. The order was determined by a random draw prior to the debate. And now, first up, Mr. Giuliani.
Well, Eric, thank you very much to Newsmax. Again, it's wonderful to be in this room with you. When I think about all the challenges that are facing our state, we need somebody not that just went to Albany and has gone along to get along, not that calls our former president racist in terms of what he's done, but somebody who's going to come out every single day and fight for New Yorkers. Fight for New Yorkers because we need to make sure we curb this out migration. We can be the safest large state in the country again, ladies and gentlemen. We can be an economic leader. You know, when I think of Rochester, when I think of New York, I think about the Erie Canal, connecting the rest of the world to the United States of America, not through DeSantis' Florida, but right here through New York. That's what we can do again, ladies and gentlemen, and that's why I'm asking for your vote on June 28th.
Mr. Wilson?
Not bad. Not great. Come on, Wilson. Keep stabbing your knife.
This election is a once-in-a-generation opportunity to take back and fix our state. That is why
That's
I
true.
put my life upside down and come in and do it, just like I've done in company after company.
I know the feeling.
Years. That is the skill set we need to make sure Albany starts working for us. To do that, we need someone who can win statewide, and we need someone who can actually fix this broken state. I'm the only one up here who spent 30 years doing it. And then in terms of winning, I ran for office once before. I was a Republican and conservative nominee for state controller in 2010. I'm the only person who's come close to winning statewide in the last 20 years.
That's right.
Because I was able to convince people that even though they didn't disagree with me, and I ran the most fiscally conservative platform in my lifetime, because they believed that would make a difference for their family. And that is exactly what we need in the state. We need someone to bring hope back, to make people to be able to believe in a better place to live and work. And that's what we'll accomplish through our turnaround plan and fundamentally remake the state for all 20 million New Yorkers.
Mr. Estorino.
Not great. None of them are like that great. Not great so far.
New York is in crisis right now. We're chaotic. It's dangerous, our streets. People can't afford to live in New York.
It's true.
And I've been through this when I ran in 2009 in deep blue Westchester and got elected and then reelected by overwhelming numbers.
Yeah, but 50
and
years
I
ago,
was the fiscal conservative and the staunch conservative that
was back when Republicans used to win stuff across
the state. I held the line on spending, and I made sure that the radicalism of the Democrats were put down. And so I've had to go up against Democrats and rhinos. And I will tell you this, people right now are concerned about whether they can afford to fill up their cars or whether or not they can go shopping or putting off their vacation this year. Help is on the way, folks. I'm going to win this race. I'm going to turn around New York like I turned around Westchester County. And I'll tell you, as I've said across this state, this is going to be the revenge of the normal people. We are tired of the crazies and the radicals that are ruining our state and our country. So vote for me, and I will put an end to this and bring normalcy back to New York.
Congress.
Here we go.
Congressman Zeldin.
Last comes the man. Punch him all.
Honored to be endorsed by the New York State Conservative Party, by the NRA, by the New York State Right to Life, by Mark Levin and Rick Grinnell and Jim Jordan. Anyone who's at home right now, you're frustrated, you're hitting your breaking point right now. You're seeing Albany attacking your freedom. You're seeing it attack your safety, the quality of your kids' education, your wallets. Albany right now puts their hand in your wallet and they give it back to you and they expect a thank you. This is our opportunity to save our state. We have to fire Kathy Hochul in November. I'm planning on continuing this winning streak, not just next Tuesday, but this November as well. But this is important for all of us everywhere, taking nothing for granted. If you want to boost upstate manufacturing, if you want to tackle broadband, you want to fight for our farmers, everything as a priority.
He said nothing about farmers in two.
To make our streets safer,
nothing
to make
about farmers.
life in New York more affordable so you could stay here. It's important for all of us everywhere, all in. Losing this race for all of us is not an option.
All right. There you have it, folks.
None of them were great.
There you have it.
That was it. That was not amazing, as you all knew. It was okay, not awesome, but there it is. That's what Republicans are offering you this year, as they try to throw me off the ballot still. So help me out if you can. If you think that what I'm saying makes sense, if you think that what I'm talking about makes sense, if you want to get somebody else up on that debate stage to actually say what's really going on, then it's important you support me. You support me with a donation, support me with volunteering, shopping if you want to, pick up a shirt, and of course, always support my sponsors, World's Smallest Political Quiz. That is the link right there, theadvocates.org. You can check them out with the World's Smallest Political Quiz. It will help them move forward, help us move forward. Guys, thank you so much for today. I appreciate all the time you gave me. I will see you all very soon.